Have you ever encountered someone whose behavior left you feeling inexplicably irritated or saddened? Perhaps it was an immature man whose reactions seemed less reflective of the present and more an echo of unresolved childhood grievances. In moments like this, we often find ourselves swimming through a sea of complex emotions: frustration, disappointment, confusion. It's easy to feel swept away by these turbulent feelings. But if we pause for a moment and delve deeper, we may uncover something profound about our reactions. Every interaction, especially with someone who exhibits immaturity, can evoke feelings that serve as windows into our own insecurities. When faced with a dismissive attitude or petulant remarks, do we become defensive? Does that irritation bubble up from within because it touches on our own unhealed wounds? Alan Watts once poignantly reminded us that much of our suffering stems from our expectations and attachments to how we think things should be. So when an immature man acts out, could our annoyance primarily reflect what we haven't yet reconciled in ourselves? Instead of casting blame outward, let's turn this situation inward. What can we learn from our own emotional landscape? Recognizing our feelings, whether they be frustration, anger, or pity, invites us to explore our inner world more intimately. Just as the ebb and flow of ocean tides are influenced by the gravitational pull of the moon, so too can our emotions be swayed by external interactions. Each reaction tells a story, not just about the other person, but about us. This is a powerful realization that can change the narrative we tell ourselves about these interactions. Many women find themselves caught in cycles of distress because they attribute value to someone else's treatment of them. When that immaturity masks itself as apathy or agitation, we often absorb these actions and let them define our worth. It's a disheartening and destabilizing experience, leading us to question, what is wrong with me? Instead, what if we could shift that perspective? Could it be liberating to consider that his immaturity is a roadblock in his own growth rather than a measure of your own value? Consider this metaphor. If we likened our emotional responses to the weather, would we allow storms to dictate our sense of self? When a tempest strikes, we don't question the stability of our foundation. Instead, we prepare ourselves to weather the storm. Similarly, if we learn to see immaturity for what it is, a sign of someone who hasn't yet navigated the complexities of emotional adulthood, we can equip ourselves with the right mindset to respond. Visualize this approach as creating space. The next time you find yourself tangled in the web of someone else's immaturity, breathe deeply. Reflect on the emotions that arise. Where do they stem from? Are you simply a mirror for his unresolved issues? This introspective journey can empower us to transform our reactions into conscious choices. When faced with immaturity, we can start responding with clarity rather than defensiveness. What if we stood firmly in our emotional truth regardless of external turmoil? Can acknowledging our feelings offer a sense of empowerment? In some ways, this acknowledgement can feel like unlocking a door to self-discovery that was previously stagnant. The intricate dance between our reactions and our emotions leads us to the realization that we have the power to define our responses. As we journey deeper into this exploration, let's cultivate an understanding that our emotional reactions provide fertile ground for personal growth. In recognizing these feelings, can we begin to separate their origins from the behaviors of others? This process of understanding our emotional landscape allows us to forge a path toward more meaningful connections, not only with others, but also within ourselves. So, dear listener, I invite you to reflect on your own relationships and the emotional responses that arise within you. How can this journey of self-discovery reshape your interactions with the immature men in your life? As we move forward, let's embrace the capacity to acknowledge our feelings as a pathway toward understanding and perhaps even transforming our experiences. Now, let's explore the first transformative attitude we can adopt in these interactions, the profound power of compassion. As we step into the next phase of our exploration, let's delve into the profound power of compassion. Imagine for a moment that instead of reacting to an immature man with anger or frustration, you approached him with understanding. What if you could see beyond his behavior and recognize the deeper insecurities that lie beneath? This shift in perspective can be transformative, not just for him, but for you as well. When faced with immaturity, it's tempting to allow irritation to take the driver's seat, but in doing so, we often miss the opportunity to connect with our humanity and theirs. Picture this. The immature man in your life isn't just a hormonal adult stuck in his childhood ways. He might be a child lost in the complications of adulthood. Viewing him from this lens can completely alter your emotional experience and allow for a more compassionate response. Could you see the fear behind his bravado? The vulnerability beneath his arrogance? In the words of Alan Watts, compassion is not about merely feeling sorry for someone. It's about putting oneself in their shoes. When we cultivate empathy, we open ourselves up to a world where we can feel connected rather than isolated in our frustration. Think about a time when you felt misunderstood. Didn't you long for someone to acknowledge your struggles and simply be there for you? This is the power of compassion. It creates space for dialogue, understanding, and ultimately healing. So, how can compassion change the game in your interactions? By recognizing that his immaturity might stem from deeper psychological wounds, you begin to detach your self-worth from his actions. Imagine walking into a tumultuous conversation equipped with compassion. Instead of engaging in a battle of egos, you might choose to gently redirect the narrative. I understand that you're feeling overwhelmed. Can we talk about what you're really experiencing? This simple shift invites vulnerability instead of defensiveness. In fostering compassion, we also unlock a more profound connection with ourselves. This practice requires us to acknowledge our feelings, but it also encourages us to approach our own struggles with kindness. Have you ever berated yourself for feeling hurt by someone else's immaturity? The moment you allow compassion to flow through you, you recognize that it's perfectly okay to feel these emotions. Could this newfound kindness towards yourself help you navigate future encounters with greater ease? While it might seem like an enormous shift, cultivating compassion doesn't mean you're condoning his behavior. Instead, it's about choosing how you respond. You're not looking to excuse his immature actions. Rather, you're attempting to engage with him as a fellow traveler on this journey of life, one who may be struggling, just as we all do at various points. Think of the world as a vast garden. Each person is a unique flower, each with its growth journey. Some bloom beautifully, while others may seem stunted or wilting. Instead of dismissing those flowers as inferior, what if you tended to them with patience and understanding? Think about the incredible possibilities that might arise if, instead of harsh judgments, we nurtured those around us. How much more fulfilling could it be to cultivate relationships grounded in compassion? The incredible truth is that by fostering compassion, you not only empower yourself to react differently, but also extend a lifeline to the immature man standing before you. In creating a compassionate space, you allow him to feel understood, prompting him, perhaps unwittingly, to reevaluate his choices. Your nurturing presence may serve as a catalyst for growth, not only in others, but within your own journey of self-discovery. So, I invite you to reflect. How can you embrace more compassion in your interactions? Perhaps the next difficult moment with an immature man could be an invitation to see him through softer eyes. As we move into the next part of our journey, let's explore the importance of setting boundaries in our relationships. The powerful combination of compassion and boundaries creates a sanctuary where both you and those around you can thrive. As we navigate the complex waters of our relationships, it becomes clear that understanding and compassion are vital, but so is the art of setting boundaries. Imagine for a moment that you're standing at the edge of a lovely garden, a sacred space that you've cultivated through your feelings and experiences. The plants flourish within their designated spaces, and each bloom has room to grow without impinging on the others. But what happens when one plant begins to overtake another, casting shadows and leaching nutrients? This is where boundaries come into play. Have you ever felt like you were tiptoeing around an immature man's feelings, constantly adjusting your behavior to maintain peace? This dynamic can become exhausting and lead to resentment. You may find yourself suppressing your own needs and desires, allowing an imbalance to form where his immaturity overshadows your emotional well-being. But is the solution to reshape ourselves entirely to accommodate someone else's instability? Setting boundaries is not just an act of self-preservation, it's a powerful statement. It tells both yourself and others that you recognize your worth and refuse to tolerate disrespect. Picture drawing a line in the sand. You stand firm, your feet grounded, while the waves of immaturity try to sweep over you. What would that look like in your interactions? Would it mean saying no more often? Would it entail standing up for your own needs when they clash with someone else's whims? Those healthy boundaries are like fences in a garden, not restrictive, but rather essential for growth and flourishing. They define your space and allow you to prioritize your emotional energy. In doing so, you're enabling yourself to cultivate meaningful and healthy connections, free of the chaos that arises from ambivalence. Imagine how reassuring it would feel to know that you're standing up for what you deserve, not just for yourself, but as a model for others. When you reinforce boundaries, you communicate that while you care for them, you won't allow their immaturity to dictate the terms of your relationship. This doesn't mean you have to shut the door on compassion. Rather, you can illustrate that compassion coexists with a firm stance on respect. Boundaries enhance rather than undermine your compassionate approach. Take a situation where an immature man continually interrupts your conversations. Instead of letting your irritation simmer, establishing a boundary might mean gently saying, "I'd like to share my thoughts without interruptions, and I believe you would feel the same in a similar situation." By stating this, you allow the space for discussion while simultaneously asserting your right to communicate effectively. Here, compassion mingles with clarity, sending a strong message. You deserve to be heard just as much as he does. Consider the alternative. When boundaries are absent, you may end up sacrificing a part of yourself, leading to feelings of hopelessness or frustration. The nourishment you could offer to your own garden becomes depleted as you pour energy into nurturing an environment that doesn't sustain your growth. What if this relentless cycle doesn't just keep you from blooming, but stifles the vitality that makes you unique? In exploring the necessity of boundaries, let's address a common fear that arises when we think about asserting ourselves, the apprehension of conflict. Interestingly, conflict can be an excellent opportunity for growth, both for you and the other person. Enforcing a boundary may spark initial resistance, yet it often paves the way for open conversations that lead to deeper understanding and connection. Can you see how this brave step to protect yourself may actually foster emotional development for both parties involved? As you start to embrace the importance of setting boundaries, take a moment to reflect on your own needs. What are the areas in your life where you feel your emotional space is being invaded? What boundaries can you begin to establish to protect the beauty you've cultivated? By reinforcing boundaries, you take a significant leap toward emotional independence. And as we refine our personal boundaries, we become more equipped to express compassion authentically, creating a balanced dynamic in our relationships. As we move forward in this exploration, let's delve into the next profound realization, understanding that his behavior doesn't define your worth. As we settle into the comforting realization that setting boundaries can redefine our emotional landscape, another pivotal truth emerges. His behavior does not define your worth. There's a liberating power in understanding this deeply. It allows you to step back from the emotional roller coaster that can come with interacting with someone who consistently displays immaturity. Imagine your worth as a beautifully crafted piece of art. Its value is intrinsic and immutable, unaffected by the opinions or actions of others. Take a moment to think about the last time you felt belittled or dismissed by an immature man. Did you walk away questioning your abilities, your attractiveness, or even your intelligence? This is a common reflex because we often internalize his behavior, letting it dictate how we perceive ourselves. But what if you could create a buffer between their actions and your self-perception? What if you could remind yourself that his difficulty in handling emotions or conflict is not a reflection of your value? Reflect on the analogy of a tree standing strong against the wind. The winds may bend branches and sway the trunk, but the essence of the tree, the roots, the trunk, remain steadfast. When faced with immature behavior, it's essential to remind yourself that you too have deep roots. By acknowledging your intrinsic worth, you cultivate resilience against external influences. Instead of perceiving a situation through the lens of defeat, you can begin to shift your focus to self-acceptance. Alan Watts once suggested that we are not merely reactions to the world. We actively shape our reality through our perceptions. How might this awareness impact your relationships? If you understand that someone else's immaturity stems from their unresolved issues, you can no longer allow their behavior to dictate your emotional state. This shift offers a powerful perspective. You become the artist of your emotional canvas, painting your feelings with colors that affirm your worth rather than allowing another to smudge those hues with their insecurities. Can you allow yourself to use those moments of frustration with an immature man as opportunities to reinforce your self-worth? Each time you encounter a dismissive attitude, can you gently remind yourself of your value? Perhaps adopt a mantra that resonates with your heart. My worth is not contingent upon how others choose to behave. As you embrace this truth, you may find it liberating to release the weight of their opinions, allowing yourself to thrive unburdened. Think about how often we allow ourselves to set our self-esteem according to someone else's actions. If he reacts childishly, do you feel inclined to adjust your behavior to soothe him? This can easily spiral into a pattern where his emotional state dictates your own. Imagine instead asserting your own sense of self during these encounters. What if you treated yourself with the same compassion you'd extend to a dear friend who was struggling? Moreover, when you choose not to internalize his immaturity, you cultivate a powerful sense of independence. You create emotional space where you can honor your feelings without relying on affirmation from someone else. In doing so, you model a healthy reaction, showing him and perhaps even inspiring him to reflect on his behavior. As we explore this crucial truth, I invite you to ask yourself, what does your internal dialogue sound like when you're confronted with an immature interaction? Is it kind and affirming, or is it laced with doubt and criticism? The way you talk to yourself in these moments can profoundly shape your self-image and overall emotional resilience. In reinforcing the idea that his behavior does not define your worth, remember that you are an evolving and intricate soul. Your essence is far richer than what can be captured by another's fleeting actions or opinions. Just as the ocean endures tides that ebb and flow, you also possess the power to return to your core essence. So, with this recognition, let's carry these reflections forward into our next theme, Embracing vulnerability. Understanding that your worth is unconditional paves the way for deeper connections rooted in honesty and authenticity, allowing both yourself and those around you to foster an environment where growth truly begins. As we move further along our journey, we find ourselves at the heart of a deeply transformative concept: embracing vulnerability. In a world that often champions strength and self-sufficiency, vulnerability is frequently misunderstood as weakness. Yet, there is profound beauty in shedding the armor of invulnerability and allowing ourselves to be truly seen. Imagine vulnerability as a delicate flower blooming in the warmth of acceptance. It invites intimacy, connection, and authenticity. In interactions with immature men, vulnerability can be particularly challenging. There may be a tendency to shield our true feelings out of fear of rejection or ridicule. But what if, instead of fearing exposure, we could view our vulnerability as a bridge to deeper understanding? When we allow ourselves to be open about our feelings, we invite others to do the same. Isn't it plausible that your admission of hurt or struggle could prompt him to reflect on his own experiences, sparking a dialogue that could lead to mutual growth? Think about a time when you shared a personal struggle with someone. Did that moment create distance or draw you closer? Often, vulnerability fosters connection. When you reveal your authentic self, you create an environment where both you and the other person can engage in honest dialogue. This approach invites them to step out of their emotional shell, potentially leading to a newfound awareness of their own immaturity. Alan Watts observed that vulnerability is not about being completely open and exposed, but rather about being genuine in the face of discomfort. It's about showing up as your true self, imperfections and all. So when faced with a moment of immaturity, consider asking yourself, what is it that you truly feel? Instead of reacting defensively, could you express those feelings openly? For example, if his actions disappoint you, instead of retreating or lashing out, might it be more effective to say, "I feel hurt when I see you behaving this way"? This gentle honesty can be transformative. Of course, embracing vulnerability does not mean enabling immature behavior. It's crucial to maintain your boundaries while being open about your feelings. You might frame your vulnerability with firmness, expressing that while you care, you will not tolerate dismissive behavior. This balance of openness and strength can significantly enrich your connections. Allow yourself to reflect on one essential aspect of vulnerability. It takes immense courage. Consider the fabled lotus flower, which emerges from the mud and blooms beautifully on the surface of the water. Just as the lotus does not shrink back from its origins, we too can acknowledge our struggles and still reach for the light. Can you see how vulnerability, when embraced, becomes a source of strength rather than a liability? Each time you step into vulnerability, you're not only revealing your authentic self to the world, but simultaneously allowing others to shed their masks too. When you make space for vulnerability in your life, it often leads to richer, more meaningful relationships. Seek moments where you can express your true feelings without fear of judgment. Each authentic interaction has the potential to cultivate intimacy, drawing friends and partners closer while fostering trust. Is there a fear of vulnerability in your current relationships? How might transforming that fear into openness reshape your interactions with the immature men in your life? But remember, vulnerability is a journey, not a destination. Just as seasons change, our comfort with our fragility can fluctuate. Some days it might feel like a breeze, and on others it may seem daunting. Allow yourself the grace to navigate these feelings. Can you embrace your vulnerability with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend? In this sacred dance with vulnerability, think about the flowers blooming around you. Which ones require gentle nurturing and care as they grow? As you situate yourself in this role, understand that vulnerability can be a catalyst for change, not only in your relationships, but within yourself. As we prepare to transition to our next theme, let's reflect on how embracing vulnerability can empower us to foster compassion, establish boundaries, and navigate life's complexities with grace. Now, let's explore the magic of authentic communication, a beautiful thread woven through our shared experiences that can transform misunderstandings into opportunities for connection. As we delve deeper into the concept of authentic communication, we uncover an incredibly powerful tool that goes hand in hand with vulnerability. This mode of communication is like a gentle current in a river, flowing freely and allowing for the exchange of thoughts, feelings, and ideas without barriers. Imagine the clarity that would emerge from conversations that are rooted in openness and honesty. Isn't it refreshing to think about creating a space where both you and an immature man can express yourselves without fear? When we communicate authentically, we invite connection and understanding. But how often do we find ourselves caught in a web of miscommunication, where words are overanalyzed or intentions are misinterpreted? This can be especially challenging when dealing with someone who may not possess the emotional maturity to engage deeply. Instead of feeling frustrated, what if you could approach these interactions with a sense of curiosity? Rather than reacting to his immaturity or misunderstanding, you could choose to engage in an open-hearted discussion, fostering an environment of clarity. Think of communication like planting seeds in a garden. The way you nurture those seeds determines the quality of the flowers that bloom. When you communicate authentically, you're planting seeds of understanding, compassion, and respect. Consider asking yourself, what seeds are you currently sowing in your relationships? Are they thriving in fertile soil, or are they struggling in rocky ground because of vague communication? To cultivate authentic communication, one essential step is to practice active listening. This means genuinely focusing on what the other person is saying rather than formulating your response while they're talking. Just as a tree leans into the wind to grow stronger, can you lean into the listening process? By fully engaging in what's being said, you validate their feelings, which can serve to diffuse tension and foster a sense of connection. Imagine having a conversation with an immature man who is struggling to express himself. Instead of feeling exasperated by his vagueness, approach him with empathy. Ask open-ended questions that invite him to share more. Can you help me understand what you mean by that? This simple inquiry not only demonstrates your willingness to listen, but also encourages him to articulate his thoughts with greater clarity. Could it be possible that your authentic communication could spark a moment of transformation for him too? Furthermore, consider your own expressions of feelings and thoughts. Are you conveying your needs honestly and respectfully, or are you tiptoeing around the truth to avoid conflict? For instance, if a specific behavior frustrates you, how might an open conversation go? You could say, "I felt hurt when you brushed off my feelings earlier. I'd like to discuss it." This statement embraces authenticity. It communicates your feelings while inviting a dialogue rather than an argument. In the spirit of fostering clarity, vulnerability in your communication can serve as a powerful model for others. Just as the sun nurtures plants to grow strong toward the light, your authentic and open nature encourages those around you to engage honestly too. Can you envision a cycle of encouragement where your trust in the process inspires others to express themselves more genuinely? As we explore this journey of authentic communication, let's not forget the importance of being mindful of our language. Language carries the weight of our experiences and emotions, and the way we express ourselves can greatly influence how we are perceived. Using I statements when sharing feelings helps create a personal narrative that nobody can deny. For example, rather than saying, "You always ignore me," consider rephrasing to, "I feel unacknowledged when my thoughts are dismissed." This subtle yet significant shift opens a pathway to dialogue, allowing both parties to engage more thoughtfully. But it's not just about speaking. Authentic communication is a dance of give and take. It invites vulnerability, clarity, and, importantly, respect. It allows both you and him to exist in a space where feelings are honored rather than dismissed. As we prepare to navigate the final stages of our exploration, let's reflect on how the principles of compassion, boundaries, vulnerability, and authentic communication intertwine to form a foundation for healthier relationships. By recognizing that your voice matters, by honoring your feelings and expressing them, you're not only advocating for yourself, but also enriching the quality of your encounters with others. So, as we embark on this journey to our final understanding, let's consider how we can integrate all these elements into our lives to create meaningful change, and how they intertwine beautifully with the last thread of our narrative. Embracing the transformative power of connection. As we draw our reflections to a close, we land on a crucial theme: the transformative power of connection. Connection is not merely an abstract notion. It's the lifeblood of our experiences and relationships. Imagine it as a network of rivers flowing, each tributary enriched by the encounters along its path. When we foster connections, we transform solitary moments into shared experiences, turning fleeting encounters into lasting bonds. In navigating relationships with immature men, understanding the power of connection becomes even more vital. Authenticity invites others to open up and engage. Instead of seeing relationship challenges as obstacles, view them as opportunities for deeper understanding. When you allow yourself to be present and genuinely invest in your interactions, you signal your willingness to build something meaningful. Ask yourself, how can your openness and authenticity inspire a more genuine exchange? Think of connection as planting seeds in a garden. Each moment of shared laughter, every honest conversation contributes to the flourishing of relationships. These small acts are like raindrops nurturing the soil. Reflect for a moment. What seeds are you currently sowing with those around you? Engaging deeply and authentically may inspire growth not only within yourself, but in others as well. Active listening is a fundamental part of fostering connection. When you engage in conversations, how often do you truly listen? Full attention demonstrates respect and care, laying the groundwork for meaningful engagement. Just as trees intertwine their branches for support, your willingness to listen invites reciprocity. If someone you care for is struggling to express themselves, what if you approach them with empathy? A simple question like, "Can you help me understand what you mean?" can create an opening for clarity and connection. Utilizing I statements instead of accusations can also facilitate understanding. By expressing your feelings in terms of your own experience, you create a personal narrative that fosters dialogue. For instance, saying, "I feel hurt when my thoughts are dismissed," rather than "you always ignore me," opens a pathway to discuss feelings constructively. This shift not only enhances communication, but invites emotional connection. However, establishing connections is not always easy, especially when faced with immature behavior. Can you find compassion in moments of frustration? Perhaps employing a sense of humor or lightheartedness during challenging conversations can transform tension into connection. Each interaction provides an opportunity to embody understanding and empathy, reinforcing the bonds that hold relationships together. As we draw our exploration to a close, let's reflect on how all we've discussed, compassion, boundaries, vulnerability, authentic communication, meld together to empower you in navigating relationships with grace. Each principle offers insight into how we can create meaningful connections. Remember that your voice matters. Honoring your feelings is a form of self-advocacy that enriches the quality of your encounters with those around you. Embrace the notion that connection, like a flowering garden, requires care, attention, and time to thrive. As you move forward in your journey, consider how these elements work in harmony to shape the relationships in your life. Would you tend to your emotional garden with patience and love, allowing both you and others to blossom in their own beauty? Thank you for taking the time to reflect on these themes with me. If you resonated with this conversation and wish to continue exploring connection in your life, please consider subscribing to the channel. Together, let's nurture our shared experiences and the beauty of relationships, embracing the power of connection in our journeys ahead.